Alaska Airmen's Association members and other aviation enthusiasts that are concerned about Alaska aviation. My name is Adam White. I am Government Legislative Affairs for the Alaska Airmen's Association, and it is time for the February 2026 Advocacy Update. So this is Advocacy with Adam. We're going to talk about a bunch of things this month. First, let me, go back to what we were talking about last month, specifically the expansion or the proposal to expand military operations areas here in the state. We're going to talk a little bit more detail about that coming up, but just want to say thank you for everybody reaching out and looking for more information. We did file our comments. We, being the Alaska Airmen's Association, filed those comments, and I will put a link in the description on where you can read those comments. But thank you for everybody participating in that. This was just the scoping phase, and we've got a lot more to come with that project. So pay attention to emails and other things about when it is time to go ahead and comment for the next round. So first, let's talk a little bit about things that have been happening, things that are going to be happening. I'm actually recording this on Monday, the 15th. No. Yeah, the 16th. The days, they just run together. So this is Monday the 16th that I'm recording this because early tomorrow morning, I'm going to be on my way to Juneau and doing things for the Alaska Aviation Advisory Board. That's a board that is appointed by the governor to advise the commissioner of DOT, Mr. Ryan Anderson, and the rest of folks there at DOT. So I serve on that board, and we are having our meeting this quarter in Juneau. So I'll be able to be there for that and then talk to some of the legislators up on the Hill at the Capitol building. So that's why I'm recording this a day early. Hopefully there's not any late breaking crazy drama that I should have addressed in this month that happens in the next 24 hours to 36 hours. But anyway, so that's a little bit of a timeline for me, what's going on this week. Also in Puyallup, Washington, this coming weekend is the Northwest Aviation Trade Show and Conference. I'll be there this weekend talking to a lot of the vendors who come to the Great Alaska Aviation Gathering in May, but also an opportunity to spend some time at the Western Service Center for the FAA, which is in that same vicinity. Now, those are the folks who make a lot of decisions that impact Alaska when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to navigation aids, when it comes to all kinds of things. They are based at the Western Service Center. It's been a disturbing trend through the years that things are being pulled out of the Alaska region and put in more of a bigger regional concept. I understand the FAA trying to consolidate resources and all of those things, but it does pull some of these people that make decisions that greatly impact our ability to aviate here in the state of Alaska, pulls them out of the state. And so it is imperative that we, as the Alaska Airmen's Association, keeps a good working relationship with those folks, even though they are no longer in the state. So I do that once a year. I go down and visit face-to-face. There's lots of meetings and phone calls and emails that happen weekly, actually, with folks in that office. But I'm going to take advantage of being in that neck of the woods and stop by and say hello. I got a series of meetings already scheduled for the days following that event there in Puyallup. So pretty busy time ahead for me traveling around on behalf of the Airmen's Association. And so look for some updates on some of the things that may come out of some of those meetings. Let's move on to some other topics that are happening. There is another GPS interference event happening in the state. So NOTAM A1136/25 is the NOTAM number if you want to go look that up. It's the same type thing. Here we are. Understanding that the military has a major exercise going on right now with the Army and a lot of ground troops and other things happening here in the state. And again, the Alaska Airmen's Association, just to go on record, we officially support the military in their need for training by denying GPS to the infantry and to aviators and to other folks involved in the military. We understand that you have to train the way that you intend to fight. and that way when you start fighting, you can fight the way that you trained. Now, we also know that the first thing that goes out in a battle is the plan, but still, there is a legitimate need for the military to train without GPS. And the best way for them to do that, because we are all resourceful creatures and devious at heart with the things that we want to do, and to be told that you just can't turn it on, well, we all know that there's workarounds for that. So the military interferes with the signal. Now, out of an abundance of caution, well, let me back up a little bit. So the military interferes with the signal for the training event. We fully support their need to be able to do that. However, out of concerns for operational security, that's the quote that's been given numerous times when we talk to the military, they need to be careful as to not show their hand to what some of our capabilities might be to our adversaries. So they kind of inflate what the capabilities might be, or maybe they make them to be smaller than what they think are. Now, I don't think they would do that from a safety perspective, but you never know. So then the military sends that data to the FAA, because the military can't issue the NOTAM, the FAA issues that NOTAM. And then the FAA reviews it, and out of an abundance of caution, the FAA will then issue a NOTAM that is much larger of an impacted area, so much so that it breaks the laws of physics. Let's just be honest. When you look at this NOTAM, it does encompass all the way down to Anchorage, even though it's going to be in the Fort Greely area, just south of there, Black Rapids, Fort Greely, in that part of the state, in Isabel Pass. And knowing what I know about RF, radio frequencies, and other things, because some of the other hats that I wear deal with those things on a pretty consistent basis, the laws of physics simply do not allow that signal to penetrate the Alaska range, the tallest and highest and biggest mountain range on the North American continent, and then jam as far away as Anchorage at the altitudes that the FAA is talking about. Simply can't happen. But the FAA's NOTAM does not take into account terrain, does not take into account lots of other issues, and again, out of an abundance of caution, they issue these NOTAMs. So, here we are. I've been working this issue for years. I continue to work these issues. I keep bringing these things up. I brought it up last week at a joint meeting that had military personnel in the room and FAA personnel in the room, and everybody in the room says, yep, Adam, you've got a point. We're just not really sure how we can address it. So I've got some hopes that we're going to make some headway with this, but you never know, right? Here's some questions that I've been asking. What considerations are being done for legacy nav aids that may or may not be functioning in the area of this event? And what capabilities do we have as a backup, a resiliency plan, if in fact GPS were to be denied in our aircraft as we fly around? Some IFR routes, some routes that we as VFR pilots use from time to time, like Victor Airways and the GPS-based routes, the T routes, those are dependent on GPS. There's actually a Victor Airways structure going around the McGrath VOR. Now, that's outside the scope of this particular interference event, but you can't navigate that Victor Airway without the use of GPS, because the VOR in McGrath only works about 20 miles away. What good is that, right? So these are the questions I'm asking. What RCOs may not be operational inside the impacted area of this interference event? Because we've all been told by the military and by the FAA, well, if you have a question or an issue in flight, let ATC know. Is your RCO working so I can actually let you know? Some of them are not working, actually, inside the impacted area. But it's also difficult to know these things because the NOTAM system is so broken. Now, to the FAA's credit, they're in the middle of a massive redesign of the NOTAM system. But today, looking to see what may or may not be working is a very difficult thing, because you can only go from a point radius out to 100 nautical miles. But yet, at 50-foot AGL, this interference event covers out to 204 nautical miles. So how am I supposed to go through and find out what may or may not be working without specifically going and asking each individual thing? And that's, who's got time for that, right? So Again, these are some of the questions that I'm trying to get answers to and trying to get the military and the FAA to think through, because to be honest with you, the FAA looks at this primarily from the perspective of what's the impact on the IFR environment, not necessarily considering all the impacts of the VFR operators. And yet I would wager that we have just as much of an impact of a loss of GPS signal as an IFR traffic would, because most IFR traffic is at an altitude where they can get radar vectors. They have a higher likelihood of being in comms range, because those are the two things that are required to be able to fly on the airway from the FAA's perspective. They keep raising the MEAs to have comm and surveillance. We, as VFR operators, operate low enough that we don't have those benefits. I'll just call them what they are, they're benefits. So are these things being considered? I'm going to say not to the point where I would like them to be considered. That's for sure. The other question that I have, what's the minimum weather that needs to be in place in the impacted area in order for the event to occur? If we're going to do this on a marginal VFR day where pilots flying VFR are going to be relying on a GPS signal more and more, is it wise to continue this exercise in marginal weather where other users of the GPS system could be impacted in an adverse way to the point where safety is definitely degraded? I understand the military's need and the things that are happening and the millions of dollars that are at play if a test, a jamming event, let's just call it what it is, does not happen. I understand the financial implications of that. I understand the years of preparation that went into this exercise. But this is a result of us being coerced, forced, encouraged, whatever word you want to put on it, to use GPS as a sole source of navigation. And legacy nav aids have not been maintained. RCOs are, some of them work, some of them don't. All the things that we are told as our backup, our resiliency plan, aren't being considered and maintained to the point where we can actually use it as a resiliency plan. So again, I'm on a little bit of a soapbox here, but this is a serious issue, so much so that I call these NOTAMs the Chicken Little NOTAMs. If you remember the nursery rhyme, the story of Chicken Little running around saying the sky's falling, and nothing ever happened, and everybody just blew him off. You know, the boy who cried wolf, you know, those same stories. This is a legit problem. However, most folks are never impacted by it, even though they operate inside the impacted area. And so we get lulled into a sense of false security, and one day we're going to have somebody actually being impacted by this, and they're going to find themselves too deep into a situation that they should not have been in to begin with, and now they're in deep trouble. So this is a concern I've got. These are the things that I'm working on behalf of you, our member of the Alaska Airmen's Association, and hopefully we can get some traction and better coordination, because again, I don't want to see the military stop doing these things. They need to do this. They absolutely have to do these things to train and prepare. If anything has taught us about what's going on in a modern battlefield right now, GPS and other navigation sources are one of the first things that get taken out. So they have to train for that. All right, so I'm going to move on because just for the sake of time, but this is a big issue. So pay attention, look at the NOTAMs, look at the NOTAM specifically for this event. It goes to the 23rd, if memory serves right. I don't have it pulled up here in front of me, but the NOTAM number A1136/25. It should be pretty easy for you to find. I also want to remind you that if, in fact, you are jammed during these time frames, or if you have any other GPS anomaly, there is a way to go and file that data, that information, file a report with the FAA. The AIM tells us how to do those things, but I'll put a website up here that will show you where you can go and fill out that information. It's pretty easy to find, doesn't take very long to fill it out. It gives the FAA some real world impacts of these events. That's probably the biggest thing we can do, is to show the FAA what the true impact is, because it's not as big as they say it is. However, I feel that when we do have an impact, it's going to be more severe, even though it's a very low occurrence count. Does that make sense? Where it's not that big of a deal until it actually happens in an actual real world situation where a pilot needed that GPS information and does not have it. So go fill out that GPS anomaly report, will you? Do me a big favor. And if you don't mind, let me know that you did that. I don't necessarily need all the information, but the date and the time and the location would help me out a lot. I'm trying to collect a bunch of that information myself so I can kind of build up a better idea what the real world impacts are. So send that to me in an email. You can respond here. You can go look at the Airmen's website. All my contact information is out there, pretty easy to find, but it's adam.white@alaskaairmen.org. Okay, I mentioned at the beginning that we did submit our JPark comment letter. I'll put a link in the description on where you can go and read those comments. Again, we are just finished with the comment period for the scoping phase of this project. This is not the last time you'll have an opportunity to comment. There'll be a couple of more at least when the proposal is refined based on the scoping comments. One of the biggest things that I put in our comment letter was the economic impact of such huge areas. Even though they may not all be turned on at the same time, it's still a huge economic impact, and suggested some folks way smarter than I am, probably smarter than you are even, to go that has that data about the economic impacts of just the smallest delay or hiccup in aviation travel in our state. So that was our biggest comment for that project. The Beyond Visual Line of Sight rule, Part 108. If you remember, I talked about that back in October, I believe it was. The FAA issued a very quick, actually, and very small window for additional comments. And that happened after I did our social media update last month. It was a list of 7 questions with some sub-questions in each topic that the FAA was looking for some very specific information and feedback on, and it was what kind of a technology is currently available, what does the industry mean when they say some of the words that we've been using for some of this, electronic conspicuity being the largest one they were wanting to have some clarification on as to what we meant versus what other folks in the industry may mean when we use the same word. So I did write a comment letter for that. I'll also include a link for that letter as well, so you can go read what that was. It was announced, and it was a 14-day window to comment. So again, a very short comment period. There were some folks in the lower 48 to petition the FAA to extend the comment period, and the FAA says, nope, you don't need more than 14 days to answer these questions. So we're not going to extend it. Anyway, that's where we are with that. We'll see what happens with the Beyond Visual Line of Sight rules for drones. If you remember the gist of those rules, how it's going to impact manned aircraft, is that if you're below 500 foot AGL, drones will have the right of way unless you are ADSB out. That is what the proposal stated. That's what some of these questions they were asking as to what that would really do, how the impacts on the manned aviation sector, what would that look like, and even what are the options for that. So to the FAA's credit, they heard loud and clear the comments that a lot of us made in that original proposal. So they're working through that. Another comment period that's coming up, March 13th is the deadline. That's the 100 low lead transition plan for the FAA. You can do a search on the internet and find that 100 low lead transition plan. And I'll put a link for that too, probably. We're going to comment on that. I've been working through that process with the folks at the Eagle Initiative and other industry partners as to the concerns we have here in Alaska, supply chain being a large part of it, long-term storage issues, seasonal shifts in temperature, extreme shifts in temperature for long-term storage, what is the blending of the two fuels may look like. All those things are very, very much a concern for us. So that comment period again ends on March 13th. Be looking for our comments. I'll publish those out for the membership to read at the appropriate time. All right, a couple more issues for you. Palmer, if you operate in and out of the Palmer Airport, I use the Palmer Airport as a transient user. Got a daughter, a son-in-law, and a grandson that live relatively close to the Palmer Airport. I appreciate being able to fly into that airport and visit family. well, I'll be honest, to visit my grandson, and it happens my daughter and son-in-law live in the same house, but whatever. So Palmer is going through a master plan here very shortly. They're going to start that process, but there's other things that have happened in the interim. The city of Palmer, Palmer is a municipally operated airport. It's not owned by state DOT. It's owned by the municipality of Palmer. And you may know that the golf course that's adjacent to the airport is actually on airport property. And the FAA says, hey, you say you want to expand, that golf course would be an awesome place to expand the airport. And that is airport property. So what are you going to do about that? Well, the city assembly, city council, can't remember now what Palmer calls themselves with that. They petitioned the FAA, and I'm just going to read it to make sure I get it right. The city council voted to petition the FAA to release from obligation the airport property occupied by the golf course. So the city says, yeah, you're right, that is part of the airport. We would like to separate those two. We would like the airport to not own and be responsible for the golf course. That would allow the golf course to remain, and it would limit any expansion of the Palmer Airport on that ground. So there's a lot of public pressure by the voters in Palmer to pressure the city council to keep the golf course. I understand that. I think that's probably a good idea on a certain level, but then we have to balance that with the need for improving and building the airport. Folks would love to build hangars, especially considering some of the winds that we get in the Palmer area and the insistence that some people want to keep using ratchet straps, but don't get me started on that, to tie their aircraft down. By the way, please don't do that. You may hate your airplane, but your neighbor in the adjacent tie down doesn't want your airplane to destroy his. So anyway, rabbit trail. By the way, the FAA says that it's a bad idea to separate those two, to separate the golf course from the airport. But the city council decided to go ahead and proceed down that road. The airport's going to have to look and see and work with the FAA as to what that's actually going to mean. The city may have to pay the airport for the value of that property, because you can't just give it away, even though it would be an internal transfer within the city. Anyway, pretty complicated deal. But here is what we can do as aviation folks, and what we can do to participate, and that is to actually participate, and I mean you need to do this, in the master plan process, which should be starting late summer of this year. So again, look for more details and information about that as it comes. But you may not have ever participated in a master plan project. There'll be some public meetings, there'll be opportunities to comment. Look for those dates and times. We'll be posting them and talking about them as they get here. But this is where it's appropriate for you to talk about what you would like to see in a master plan for the airport. What is the ultimate design and needs, and how do we get there when it comes to managing and operating an airport? So that is part of the public process, and we as aviation users of the Palmer Airport need to participate. Those based at Palmer most certainly need to participate, but also the transient users need to participate in that process as well. All right, so a couple more things just to wrap up real quick. The GA survey is out. I just got my email this morning to go fill out that survey. Please do that. I know a lot of folks say, I don't want Big Brother knowing all these things. It's a waste of my time. Actually, look, it's not a waste of your time. The data is de-identified. It helps me, it helps the FAA know what's out there as far as aircraft that are actively flying, how much flying is really happening, what's the equipage level of certain navigation aids, ADS-B, all those things, which I'm not sure ADS-B questions are on there this year. I haven't actually looked at it. I just got the notification this morning right before I went to record this. So I'm going to go fill that out this afternoon. But please fill out that survey. It actually does help. It helps the regulators know and understand what's out there. It helps me be able to advocate with real numbers that we all agree on as to what is really out there and what we need. So do me a favor, take the few minutes to fill it out. I'll put a link to the survey here. You might get a postcard reminding you to do it, but it doesn't take very long. but please go fill that out. There's a random sampling of aircraft registered in the lower 48 that get an invite to participate in that survey, but every Alaska registered aircraft every year gets an invite to participate in that survey, because we need data here in Alaska so bad that every aircraft in Alaska participates every year, has the opportunity to participate, I should say. All right, I guess the elephant in the room that everybody is talking about, if you're a member of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, you know that there's been some, just call it what it is, some drama. There's been some things happening between the board of directors of AOPA and Darren Pleasance, the former CEO, who was let go. It brings up a big discussion, and I'm not going to get into the middle of should the board have done this or done that. I am a lifetime member of AOPA. I have some personal opinions. I've done some things personally as a result of this. I am still a lifetime member, so let's just keep that out there on the table. But what it brings up and why it's appropriate for me to talk about this here right now, it is a valuable thing to have an organization like AOPA. Now, you may think, Adam, that's kind of crazy. You're the government affairs guy for the Alaska Airmen's Association. Isn't that kind of like your competitor? No, I don't consider AOPA to be in competition with us. If you've been in any meetings I've been in where this topic has come up, you will have heard me say this. We consider AOPA, we being myself specifically in the Alaska Airmen's Association, but Alaska Airmen's Association generally, considers AOPA to be a very strong ally. We consider them to be our city cousin, if you could use that phrase. They're based on the East Coast, very close to Washington, D.C. They have they're a bigger gorilla in the room, let's just put it that way. And we are closely aligned on a lot of advocacy issues. Now, there's been times when we've disagreed, but as a statewide organization, we have that flexibility. And I will tell you that there's benefit to being part of a local pilots group, which if your airport has one, by all means, you should most definitely participate in your local pilot group, because that helps you work directly with the folks who make decisions about your airport. It's also very important to be part of a statewide organization or a regional organization, because there's other issues, statewide or regional issues, and even some national and international issues that a regional organization like the Airmen's Association can be very influential in, to be honest with you. But it's also important to be part of a nationwide organization, whether it's AOPA, EAA, National Business Aircraft Association, Vertical Lift Association, which used to be Helicopters International. Anyway, you get the idea. There is value to being part of those organizations. Your membership actually does matter, because when I go in and when someone from AOPA goes in to start talking to regulators, they actually know already, to be honest with you, but how many members are standing behind this person? How seriously do I need to take what they're saying because of who they represent? So membership matters. Membership is very important. Now, of course, I'm going to tell you, you need to be a member of the Alaska Airmen's Association, because I strongly believe in our mission and what we do and its effectiveness, or I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And because you're a member, it allows me to do these things on your behalf and to advocate for the needs of Alaska aviation specifically. So if you're not a member of the Alaska Airmen's Association, consider joining. If you're a member of AOPA, if you don't like what's going on, I'm not going to tell you how to deal with your membership, but strongly consider the value of what's happening in aviation and the need for advocacy on all the different levels, local, regional, statewide, and national. So there is value in all of those things. So again, it may sound kind of crazy for me to advocate on that when some people see that as being our competition. Again, I don't see it as competition. I see it as brothers in arms, for the lack of a better term. And again, I've used the term, they're our city cousin and we're kind of the country cousin. That doesn't mean that we're ignorant or anything else that goes along with that. It's just a matter of size and influence, to be honest with you. We have great influence with the Alaska Airmen's Association, no doubt. We're able to be involved in meetings and conversations, and in fact, some serious change. But we are not the 800-pound gorilla. We know that. AOPA and EAA have exponentially more members, but we all have our role and our place. And if you are not satisfied and you have withdrawn your membership from AOPA, I'm not going to be too shy and too bashful or too embarrassed to say, consider joining the Alaska Airmen's Association. I think it's a benefit and a value well beyond the membership dues that's for every year. So with that, I will also remind you to buy your raffle tickets because they are selling pretty quick. 4-place Super Cub, experimental 4-place Super Cub that's being built by the great folks over in Cordova, and seen pictures of that. And if you've seen a social media post, it's a pretty nice airplane. So, all right, I've gone on long enough. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your encouragement and comments about these updates. It seems that a lot of you do appreciate knowing what's going on, and thank you for that. Thank you for that feedback. If you got any questions about any of these topics, put a comment down below. Send me an email. Let me know. Be glad to interface with you and get you some more details and information. If there's something you haven't heard me talk about that is a concern of yours, chances are I may already be working that issue. It just hasn't risen to the top enough to be able to be included in these short updates. But please let me know if there's something you don't hear me talking about. I will tell you that I am very much plugged in. I do a lot of reading and research that consumes a lot of my time. I enjoy that work, actually, just because of some of the other areas I'm involved in. Reading and research has always been a fun thing for me. But that doesn't necessarily mean I actually know about it. And so a lot of times, issues that have become bigger issues that we've advocated for came to my attention through comments from members. So thank you for that. Please don't feel like, oh, Adam probably already knows about this. I don't want to bother him. No. Please, please reach out. I may just send you a short response. Hey, thanks for the heads up. Already knew about that. Here's what we're doing on this issue, and I'll update you on where we are on the issue. But if I don't know about it, I'm like, hey, thanks for telling me. Tell me where I can find out more information. So again, we're in this all together. And so appreciate you participating in your organization. So with that, I'll sign off and say goodbye, and we'll talk again next month.